there are jokes coming up. Oxford has a comedy show coming up on, I think it's, the 2020, I'll get there eventually, I swear, the 26th of April.
And who's going to open for you?
Yeah, I don't even make it to the stage, my friend. This is going to be a fundraiser for the Oxford Community Centre, and there's a comedy fundraiser show at the Oxford Capitol Theatre on the 26th of April. I had a chance to interview Kyle Carpenter. He's one of the headliners, and I'll have that article up on Hello Oxford forthwith.
Awesome. You know, there once was a day when I wanted to try stand-up comedy, and in fact I did, and I stood up. That was it. I just stood up. There was nothing funny about it.
No hecklers?
I heckled myself. That's how bad it was.
Oh, dear.
Now, there's one big question on the minds of folks here today. We talked to the mayor yesterday about the committee of the whole meeting and all the reports and so on, but we also talked about the special meeting which was held in camera, meaning, of course, behind closed doors. And we kind of teased back and forth with the mayor, but never really did get to know what it was about. I'm sure you can tell us now.
I'm sure I can't.
Well, you can't tell us the detail, but you can tell us at least what the subject matter was.
I cannot.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the nature of these in-camera sessions. We know nothing more than what's on the agenda, which is dealing with the municipal sale of property or some other thing like that. We never know unless a motion is made within that meeting that needs to be declared. And in the second video session following the council meeting last night, when they came out of in-camera, nothing to tell us, and that's it, folks. Good night.
Well, it would wait, actually, for the next actual town council meeting. They don't make motions in camera. They're not allowed to. But they need to come to a council meeting and make the motion, if there is indeed a motion to make, but to make the motion to take action on their discussions. That would require the next meeting of the council. So when they came out of that in camera last night, they were coming into a committee meeting, which also doesn't get involved in making motions of that nature. So I guess we just have to wait a week.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, they have come out of in-camera, and if something had been sort of decided that a motion would need to be put on an agenda, they would then do that at that meeting. But that wasn't the case last night. So we'll have to wait. Lots of mysteries in the small town of Oxford.
Isn't that something new? Yeah, right on. How about the rest of the meeting? There are all kinds of stuff, presentations about the Chamber of Commerce and about the woodlot owners or forestry producers, on and on. I mean, you need another hour in the day.
Well, look, fortunately, what I can say is the two presentations last night were simply informative. From Beth Peterkin of the Chamber of Commerce, the Cumberland Chamber of Commerce, which now is kind of the umbrella organization for all of the smaller Chamber of Commerce that had existed. Chambers of Commerce, I guess is how the plural would work. So she basically simply spoke to council about what the Chamber of Commerce does in terms of promoting local economic activity. And she was followed up by Ron Furlong with the Cumberland Forestry Advisory Committee and a presentation, which, again, was informative, telling council about what sort of things the forestry sector in Cumberland is involved with and how it's changed over the years, how important it is to the local economy. But really no action items. It was very much informative. And both of those presentations are available in full in terms of the slideshow presentations on the agenda packages that are uploaded to the Oxford Town website. And then, of course, as you say, those were followed up by all of the committee reports. Nothing terribly exciting, I must say. The usual monthly business of the town, just keeping the gears moving, keeping the potholes patched, and all of that sort of thing. The usual spring rigmarole in town.
Yeah, we were talking to the mayor yesterday. We got briefly touched on the idea of the budget discussions and working out the financial packages and so on. And I don't know why, but my brain slipped into a different gear altogether. And I thought, instead of raising taxes, why doesn't the town just start a lottery and people can place their bets on where the next water break's going to be?
Pothole bingo.
Potholes and water breaks, yeah.
Well, true, and the town crew is out working on another water break today. This one off of the Pugwash Road to where the older town reservoir is. Shouldn't affect any service in town, but they wanted to let people know that it was happening regardless. What else is exciting that we can tell you about? Of course, last night the other committee report meeting that is always very interesting to listen to is that of Fire Chief Bruce Rushton, talking about the calls the department had. There were 11 calls in March. That would be 42 calls overall since January 1st, and on track for another big year of activity for the fire department. And Chief Rushton took some pains to make sure that people understood that many of the calls that our volunteer firefighters go out to are on the Trans-Canada Highway. And there has been a number of incidents, a number of near misses, a number of concerns about the speed of vehicles traveling through an emergency scene. Now, I don't get this, Bill. You're on the highway, you've got lots of flashing lights, you would slow down, you would think. But that's not the case. There are so many people that continue to fly through these emergency scenes when our first responders are responding to accidents, and they're just not taking the proper care.
Listen, I ask you a question here. I know that you would slow down, and you know that I would slow down, but I would argue perhaps it's both because you and I share the great curiosity of what's going on here, and other people who couldn't care less are just flying by.
Well, I mean, there's the rubbernecker crowd, but I think a lot of it these days are just people wanting to get where they're going. Personally, I would slow down primarily, not so much to do the rubbernecking, but more because if it's a flashing light, that means there's probably a police car, and I don't want to get a ticket. You know, those things are expensive.
And the rules are very clear. When you come across an emergency scene, when you come across flashing lights and signal lights, you are required to move out of that lane and slow down, I think, to a minimum of 80, or a maximum, rather, of 80, regardless of what the highway signs say. But so few people today even understand the rules. I mean, they don't even put on turn signals properly. And people today, you know, one wonders why we don't perhaps have a required go back for another driver's test. And I tell you, a whole lot of people would fail miserably.
Oh, Bill, the curmudgeon in me. I mean, getting my grouch on here. Absolutely. You know, the older I get, the more, you know, you spend your time shaking your head at people wondering what are they doing. And the whole thing about the moving over with flashing lights on the highway, people have taken that, some people have really taken it to heart, and they'll do it for anybody who's pulled off to the side of the road to answer a phone call or to change a tire or to visit a bush. They'll move off into the other lane and give that person some space. It's not just for the flashing emergency vehicles. But yes, the regulations are, if you see flashing lights from an emergency vehicle, police, fire truck, etc., you do move over and slow down. But boy, oh boy, you have to wonder where some people do get their training.
Or lack thereof.
Indeed.
Indeed, indeed. Well, that should be on the front page of Hello Oxford, I'm telling you.
Yeah, I'll have to start a curmudgeon column, and we'll see. Maybe we can cooperate on that.
Actually, I've been doing that myself here for a while now. They call it His View, but it's really the curmudgeon. I'm going to change the name, curmudgeon column. I like that.
Look, I don't want to run out of our time today without also giving a shout-out to our recreation people at Oxford. Our new municipal physical activity leader, Marion Abbott, taken on the job, and just the amount of energy that person is putting into her job in the first month is absolutely amazing. So many activities, and one very rewarding thing for someone like me who is interested in community history is the work that Marion is putting into sprucing up the Oxford Capitol Theatre, and there are so many events planned for the coming months, comedy shows. There's a lovely Irish and Scottish music event coming up in June. So many things. If people are looking for a reason to get out of their house once the weather gets a little warmer, boy, oh boy, Oxford Capitol Theatre is the place to be.
I love that place. It's got a great sound to it, acoustically speaking, And yet, when you look at all the metal in the ceiling and all over the place, it shouldn't be that way. But yet it is. It's a great place to go and take part and listen clearly to clear sound, whether it be a stage play and listening to the conversations taking place or somebody presenting music. And musicians love to play there.
And one of the things that Marion has taken pains recently to do is upgrade the seating. So we now have accessible seating at the back of the theater. We have seating for persons who don't fit into the existing seats that have been there since the place was built in 1923.
You told me you promised you would never tell.
Well, it's more the navigating through the seats, as you try to get to the one against the wall. I don't know what I'm saying. But it's simply to say that it's becoming a much more welcoming and inviting place physically for people to visit, and the same old great charm of a small town theater.
Really is. It really, really is. And it's a throwback to something that it's a treasure just to be able to go in there and look at it and say, this is what we used to go to see. This when this was new, it looked exactly like this.
Now, look, speaking of new, you may have, on your many drives through our lovely small town, taken in the new superstructure of our upcoming community center that's being built on Lower Main Street, the site of the former Oxford Regional High School. The metal skeleton is there. It's slowly being added to. They're doing some of the plumbing and other underground things that I have no clue about. But it's an impressive building going up. We do have an article up on Hello Oxford with, get this, we're in the 21st century. We have drone footage of the center under construction provided by Dave Spencer here in town.
Awesome.
And we have coverage on the upcoming election, which I know you are knee-deep into.
Actually, I'm embarrassed to say that for some reason, this particular election, as important as it is to Canada, given the situation south of the border, that for some reason this one has lost my attention. I had a commentary a while back where I talked about I don't trust the Liberal Party, but I might be able to trust their new leader. And I do trust the other party, but I don't trust their leader. And as a consequence, I'm sitting here scratching my head thinking, is there an alternative? What do I do? So I'm not my normal self when it comes to my political hunger.
Well, I understand completely. And I was remarking one thing to myself. I often talk to myself as I drive through town. On a number of cars that are driving around, vehicles now with Canada flags flying off of the poles, off the windows.
Yeah.
Now, in the past, in the very recent past, if you saw a Canadian flag flying off somebody's vehicle, these tended to be the folks who were, let's say, a bit to the right of the political spectrum, people who would, say, be pro-convoy types, that sort of bit, very anti-Justin Trudeau types, let's say, if we were going to generalize. But now it's also a lot of people who are simply showing their patriotism, their nationalism in response to the threat of Trump and tariffs and all of this 51st state conversation. I don't know who's who on the road anymore.
You can't tell them by the flag anymore, eh?
I'm afraid not.
But, I certainly really enjoy the Canadian nationalistic view that we have today, the way we've embraced the provinces and recognized the uniqueness of our country and how we have a unique potential as a country. And we've only just really begun to realize that and wanting to tear down the silly borders and barricades we had from one province to the next, calling ourselves a country, but we were just a sum of its parts. And I think now we're beginning to really think in terms about becoming a real united country. It's caused me to start thinking, I very proudly fly a Nova Scotia flag at Hope Centre. Had it in my office for years and years and years. Never considered a Canadian flag. And now I'm thinking about opening up the front of the building with a series of flags across the front, and of course prominently and appropriately featuring as the keymost one, the Canadian flag. So there's something stirring in our bones, in our psyche, in our inner being that I think is a very good thing. Well,
yes. I'm always concerned when there's unbridled and uncritical nationalism, because every national state has its dark side. We have our own in Canada as well. But yes, in the face of these kinds of external threats, Canadians do tend to come together and stand united, which is wonderful. Let's see how this all plays out in the election, whether that means a true Canadian response to unity. And you can't even talk about American tariffs and threats at this point in any logical way, because it seems every 5 minutes the President Trump changes his mind on what he wants to do. Tariffs are on, tariffs are off. Maybe 10% for you, 5% for you. Your head is spinning trying to follow all of this.
It reminds me so vividly of a skit that played over and over and over on Saturday Night Live, or on I can't think of his name now. A comedian had a show. They called it the Soup Nazi.
Oh, the Seinfeld.
Seinfeld, yes.
Yes.
And you would go there, of course, and he would say, "No soup for you, no soup for you." And, he had no reason, no rationale. People would go in there and cower in the corner, making sure they didn't say the wrong thing. They'd lose their soup. And, people are looking at the same way, afraid to say anything to, for, and about Donald Trump for fear he'll say, "No soup for you."
Well, let's hope it's no tariffs for us.
There you go. In our case, of course, we can gather at the Oxford Seniors Club on a Monday morning or a Tuesday afternoon, and we can break bread together, or cookies together, have coffee, and maybe someday we'll have some soup too. How's that?
Absolutely a great idea.
You be safe out there, my friend. It's always a treat to talk to you, and one never knows what we're going to talk about, and that's what I love about it.
Great. Talk to you soon, Bill.
Look forward to it. Bye for now. There you have it. That's Mark Rushton. He is, of course, our resident community correspondent for Oxford, and I've said several times we'd like to have more fellas like that, ladies like that, who care about your own community such that you want to make sure your community gets right on the map and everybody gets to know what's going on in your community. And if you want to be a community correspondent for where you live, just give me a call. 902-614-3000. And I certainly would love to hear from you, because we would love to have community correspondents all over the place, right across Cumberland County. And all you have to do is enjoy your community, be proud of your community, and tell us what's going on. And we'll share that with all the rest of the county, to be sure.